Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
How are you?
It's so good to
good.
see you again.
You
How are you?
too. Right now,
That's
he
fine.
just ran to the bathroom, so he'll be kind of in and out and back and forth. So I'm
We
so excited.
completely get it.
You get it.
You right?
You
I'm
understand.
sure.
Yep.
Thank you
We
so much for having us.
you
Yeah, absolutely.
I was so excited to have you guys back on. Not just because Will is a man willing to show um, a lot of sides um, that I think a lot of you know men struggle to show. But
Mm-hmm.
also you as his caretaker and his wife and his partner and his best friend, it's such a special interview for me. Thank you for coming back with us.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you. I'm hoping like I said, he'll be back and forth, but
Yeah, don't worry.
It's okay. It also gives a little bit of time for people to join us.
Yeah.
People are getting used to that we've changed it to do Tuesdays and Thursdays now, right? So they'll start noticing that, and yeah, and anybody that misses this are going to be able to go and look at the recording out on YouTube, right? So we'll be uploading that to our YouTube channel, and once it's
awesome.
on our YouTube channel, then people can refer to it, and you can direct people there.
Yeah.
So
That's really awesome. Thank you. Here's Will. He was able to join.
So good
Hi.
to see you, Will. How are you doing?
How you doing?
There?
She said, "Are you
Just
hanging in
there,
there?"
I'm
probably.
hanging in there. I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Well,
He,
if you need to pause, if you know, step away, there's no certain way we do these.
Okay.
I'm sure if you guys have seen others, there's been some that lay in bed in the dark and we interview them that way. Just whatever. We come into your lives and you're willing to open your home to us, and however that is, it's an honor. Doesn't matter.
oh, thank you. Can you hear her okay?
I can hear some.
Okay. He's very hard of hearing, so I might have to repeat some things and stuff
That's
back
fine.
and forth too.
That's good to know. We'll speak up for Will.
Okay.
Make sure.
And it's a lot of side effects from when he was sedated for so long that I did not realize certain things got affected like that. His eyesight, his hearing, and his eyesight, they said aged to like, what about a 70-some-year-old from just all the sedation medicines.
I wouldn't have known that. I would have never known that.
Yep, how it affects so much of your body that you don't even realize. And we learned this afterwards. He went and had to get his eyes checked, and they said it was from all the sedation medicine, and plus with affecting with the hearing.
Yeah.
So who knows what really that all does to your body?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if something could like knock you out and keep you that way, it has to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, really?
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just never would have thought of that. Thank you for bringing that up, because that was the first time. One thing that never ceases to amaze me is that we continue to learn so much through every home we enter. And it's, and every story we get to travel with you guys. And this is why we do it. This is so personal to you guys, and you bring so much to the community, to our family. We're all a big family, and that was so helpful right off the bat. I would not have ever guessed that.
Well, and that's on top of the lung condition that we haven't even gotten into.
Yeah.
You know.
That's just the side effects. Some of them.
That's it. Yeah, there's a ton more. I tend to, I don't know how much detail you want, but I got it all. So his story's like so many parts to it. that intertwine, especially with me. I mean, he went through all the physical aspects of everything and the medical side. I have my side that I witnessed as his wife, then as his caretaker, the lessons also that I have learned spiritually also that I went through. Same with Will. It's there's just like a whole big bundle.
Yeah, and
I'm over here going, because we do not have enough caretakers, we do not have
Given
enough
that perspective.
partners, we do not have enough people that really rely on, spiritual aspect of things to hang on to each other, to hang on for life, to hang on. And yes, wherever you want to start, we're ready to go down whatever path you want to take us down.
Yeah, especially because when you're doing posts, even if it's like 3 minutes,
Yeah.
you can only do so much, right? So we wanted to
Right.
provide an opportunity for you to go back as far as you want, whatever detail that you want, so that you can really have another stage with your guys' story.
Yeah.
To her point. So
You both are just beautiful people too. When I look
Thank
at you, because I'll look down at my phone because I'm trying to look at the chat because I'm blind even with glasses on. You're just such a beautiful couple.
Oh, thank you.
I love you guys. I don't know. There's just some that there's such a connection, and obviously I'm excited.
Oh, we feel the same.
That's good.
So whenever we came on to like TikTok too, I wasn't real sure what to expect, and it has definitely had its ups and downs.
Yeah,
But the families and the support that we have forged is, it just really touches you in your heart, and I just love every single one of you and think of you guys all the time. What people are going through. So.
Yes.
So, well, anyways, so I don't know who all you have on your side, but like I said, again, I really appreciate being here and having this opportunity to share, our story, Will's story, and from there. So April, it started in 2018. Is when he initially went into the hospital, but months before then, Will started to have some effects. We didn't know what it was. They thought it was stuff like with his heart and things like that, and back and forth with doctors and just kind of getting frustrated and really no real answers. Then and I've always been faith-based. I've always gone to church, things like that. Will, not so much. I mean, we'll be married 25 years in February. And it took many, many years before, Will would go with me, but not on a regular basis. It wasn't kind of like his thing at the time,
Yeah.
But little did we know how God was working in this journey and what we were going to be facing, pretty soon. So there was one Sunday that, just thought it was a regular Sunday that we went to church. And do you want to finish the rest of that one? About when you?
My father went up for prayer, and I went up because I seen him crying, which is not like my father-in-law. And I seen him crying, so I went up with him.
Yeah.
And I felt something pull me. Something pulled me, and that's when I got saved.
Oh wow, that's pretty amazing.
I love that. That's special.
Little did he know, like he said, he thought he was going up for my dad, and he said next thing he knew, like he just knew that this was for him. And I think it kind of just, the Lord worked through my dad to kind of give Will a little bit of that strength, like, to go up there to do that. And that was 3 weeks only before Will went into the hospital.
The Lord knew.
Yes.
You would need that.
Exactly.
You would need that to lean on.
And so the journey that continued from there has been pretty incredible. So 3 weeks later, Will went to Giant Eagle, our grocery store, and he was he had a stroke. He didn't realize at the time what was going on, but he just couldn't move. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk anything. It took him like a good while to gather himself. And then he called me, and then he said he was okay. He went to the doctors, and they did an
Bill
MRI.
was completely alone when it happened?
Yes, he was
Was he
in the middle of the
completely
grocery
alone?
store.
Oh my word.
Middle of the grocery store.
Oh, wow.
And he drove home, afterwards.
Oh,
Like
whoa.
he had the stroke, gathered himself up, and drove home.
Oh my.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't hear that. You don't hear that too often, Will. You're out of control, Will. What are you doing?
Yeah, he
like,
can be a
well,
little bit
maybe
stubborn sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, so like I said, when he came home, and then April the 11th was the day that he entered into the hospital. The doctor called, said, you need to get to the hospital right now. You've had a stroke. We don't know what is going on. Get to the hospital. So April the 11th is also the day that Will and I had our very first date. So, and that was the day that he went into the hospital, and it was just like one of those. I was like, just like, really, just the coincidence.
The coincidence. Yeah.
Yep, something that's beyond a coincidence.
Yep.
Yep. That's
so
pretty amazing.
So after he went into the hospital, into the emergency room, it was the start of a lot of I don't know. You'll hear that a lot throughout when I tell this story. It's I don't know. My mom is actually in here, and it has just become like our running joke of I don't know, because there was a lot of
like, no answers, right?
Yeah,
no answers.
I'm so with you on that.
Like, let me guess. I don't know. Yep, I don't know either.
My doctor, we laugh about it now because everything's, well, who knows? We'll find out when your body shows it or doesn't. I don't know. Yeah.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
They thought he had tuberculosis. They thought he had some type of a blood infection. They put him through the gamut. They just could not figure out what was wrong with him at the time. So we were all over the hospital because he was in quarantine. So Will's been in quarantine before anybody knew anything about COVID and quarantine, because they had him in all the isolations room because they thought he had tuberculosis. They wasn't sure.
He was in quarantine. We're not talking at home or in your room.
No.
He was really.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, that would be scary.
The room that he was in for the first set, it actually like broke. The whole ventilation system broke. So they had to send us to another floor, to another quarantine room.
Yeah.
And it was just, this is how the other stories that I tell you, how we forged a lot of our relationships in the hospital, because we were pretty much all over the place with there. Yeah, so finally they decided that they were going to check his heart. They cut inside of his neck for both sides to see if there was clogged arteries. They said if one wasn't clogged on this side, then they would do the other side. So as soon as he came out and I had seen that he had a cut on both sides, I knew that they couldn't, they didn't know what the problem was still. He has blood work in samples that have actually been sent off to places in California for research because they just weren't quite sure what was going on with Will. So, I mean, that's extremely scary in the unknown when you're having like samples of your body being sent out to places and you're in quarantine, and it was like, what are we to expect? Little did we know what was going to happen.
When it's beyond let's send it to the specialist. Oh, let's send it to the specialist over the specialist.
Yes.
Or they start dispersing your blood to different labs.
Specialist.
Will, you were very, very ill, man. I'm just so blessed that you're still here and such a fighter. Oh my word.
She said she's happy that you're still here and you're such a fighter.
So blessed.
I'm happy to be here.
Then in a few days after that, this was after like about 11 days, they just so they went in and they did the echocardiogram, and they found that his heart valve had turned to mush. I was in the I was in the waiting room, and he come out and he says, we have, finally figured out what the problem was. He needs to have his aortic heart valve replaced. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Yeah. I was like, what? I mean, he's, you're sending off his blood, and all of a sudden it's his heart. So and I'll kind of fast forward a little bit. So what had happened was,
real quick, the heart valve.
Mm-hmm.
What would cause that to fail so terribly?
The antiphospholipid syndrome is eventually, after months of different studies and tests, that's what they finally discovered. He has the antiphospholipid syndrome, which basically it attacks the protein in his blood, turns it into blood clots. Your aortic valve is actually one of the most vulnerable parts. When something goes to attack your body, your aortic valve is very vulnerable. So it hit, the blood clots settled on his aortic valve, just pretty much starved it out, caused it to go to mush. That is what broke off and caused him to have the stroke. When a piece of that broke off, that's what he had the stroke.
That's what started.
So, and in the beginning, they had thought, Will had a colonoscopy in December. They actually thought that he had an infection from the colonoscopy that affected his heart. So that's where they first started looking into. So we had that whole aspect of what they were looking at, and that's initially what they thought was the problem. And
days on days, you must have been, both of you must have just been obviously not, you didn't have a clue which direction or what answer was going to come to you. How long did this go on?
It was very well. I mean, throughout the course that he was even sedated, we still didn't have a lot of answers. It was actually probably about over a year till we really got a definite answer that it was the antiphospholipid syndrome. In your body, there's markers that they show when you have the an autoimmune disease. So he had so many of the markers, but then as it aggressively got worse, then he formed more of the markers. There really isn't like a blood test. There isn't an X-ray to show the antiphospholipid syndrome. So it eventually just, reared its ugly head in full. As time went on. So they come to us and said that, he has to have his heart valve replaced, but we're still concerned that he has a blood infection. So you have two choices to make. So you either wait to see what the blood infection is, or we go ahead and replace the heart valve and take our chances. Okay.
How do you make that choice?
So, as we were thinking about it, and then the next day, I think it was about 2 days later, Will went into congestive heart failure. So we know, he said, you no longer have a choice. We have to replace the aortic valve now. I mean, he just had way too much fluid. And so that choice was made for us.
Do you feel like that, because that happens sometimes to people, do you feel like that was another thing? Because this is how my brain works and how I deal with a lot of when my body isn't working right. And I don't know, and especially, I guess, going through it and not knowing what was going on, do you look back on that and think that was a blessing that I didn't have to make that choice, because that was such a difficult choice, almost an impossible one. You know what I mean? Okay.
Absolutely. Because if I would have, or if the two of us would have came up and said, let's have the surgery, and then Will went through what I'm about to tell you, I don't know if I would have ever been able to forgive myself.
Yeah.
Even though it's not true, but I mean, this is just how our minds are.
Still gets you.
Yep. So I'm very thankful that decision was made. As I look back, every decision that was made, even though some of the outcome isn't that great, I'm still very thankful for, and everything, had its purpose. But so they get Will ready for the surgery. They make you watch this little video, this old guy hugging a pillow and and coughing and sipping water and sitting on the side of the bed, and I'm thinking, all right, he's going to go down for surgery. They're going to replace his heart valve. He's going to come up to the room. We're going to give him his pillow, and he's going to sip on water. And, we're a couple days later, we'll be going home. It'll be okay. Not the case.
Not the case. Yeah.
Not the case.
I'm just looking at you, Will, because I think you're a little like me. You like to take her on a wild ride. Keep her guessing.
Oh. You're real good at that. At this point, he really doesn't even.
I don't remember anything.
From this point on, from the surgery, he remembers nothing.
Really? Okay, you gotta keep going.
It's actually an absolute blessing, for him to not remember all that stuff. So he has the surgery. He's in the CVU unit, and when he was in the CVU unit that was downstairs, he was there like overnight, and I went home. He was okay. Things were stable. I went home. Had been very long days, being there with the surgery, and his nurse calls me and said, we're having just a little bit of trouble with Will. And you might, I'm not real sure, but I just want to let you know what's going on. He's like hallucinating and he's seeing things. And they thought it was just a reaction to the medication.
Right.
Now, Will is a corrections officer, and he thought, can we hear Cookie Monster song real quick? Papa's favorite boy's bedtime.
C is for cookie. It's good enough for me. C is for cookie. It's good enough for me. C is for cookie. It's good enough for me. Cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C. Cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C.
Love you, Braden. Good night.
Love you, buddy.
Oh, that's sweet.
That's our grandson.
Fell for that. That was yeah. I know I'm going to be dreaming about Will. Cookies. That was adorable. He sounds just like him.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Everybody's saying they love it.
Yeah.
Definitely Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
Oh, he gets in with that every time. He's 9 months and he just absolutely adores his grandfather.
Is that what it was? It was his grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's our grandson, our very first grandson. His name
give
is
our
Braden.
love to your family.
Please.
I think that I seen a little comment on the post how maybe it was your daughter that wanted to kind of be a part of it and
cheer you on.
Oh, I wish that we could pull in. I think you have to have so many followers before you could do an additional
We'll do one again.
5.
There you go.
If your guy wants to join, that would be amazing.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Whenever we found out that whenever we found out that we were expecting our first grandson, and Will looked at me, and do you remember what you said? Will looked at me and he said, well, from the stroke, he doesn't remember. He says, I have to live forever now. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was just such a positive.
Really.
Our little granddaughter's just over 1 year old, and so I get that.
Oh,
Well, my body's got to fight harder now because we don't have a choice, do we?
Yeah.
That's it. But we have also learned we do every day, every holiday, every birthday now, and why haven't we been celebrating it all these years like it's our last?
Exactly.
Just to enjoy everything. So that's what we do now. Unfortunately, it took us to do that, but that's what we do. Don't take anything.
Those are the silver linings, you guys.
So,
and everybody in here knows that.
We'll be on here till midnight if I keep going, but I would used to make
You're
wreaths.
fine, you're fine.
And
Oh.
I used to make wreaths and stuff with my sister, and we named our business Silver Lining.
Oh, really?
Silver lining.
Okay.
Always look for the silver lining. So when
That's
he
Love
said
it.
that,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
cool.
we got that from the one song, That's What Faith Can Do.
Yep.
When I heard that, I was in the car and we were coming up with all kinds of stuff, and I said, all right, Lord, this is it, do or die. I need a title, and that song came on in Silver Lining, and little
And
did
he
I know what
answered
it was
you.
gonna. He did. He's like, there it is. So back to Will, he was in the CVU unit and he was hallucinating, and so they were just like a little bit nervous, and I said, well, I'll be up, and she said he's seeing things, and I hung up the phone and I heard up and I called back and I was like, wait a minute. I said, you guys have to be careful because he's a corrections officer, and if he thinks what he is seeing is inmates coming after him, be careful. And then she said, well, in the meantime, we figured out what it was, because Will kept saying that people, he kept saying, like, there's these black guys coming after me with orange hair. And he was, he was getting very upset over it. Here, what they discovered, it was the decaf coffee pot out in the hall that he was seeing. And as soon as they moved it out of his sight, he was okay. But he was hallucinating with the decaf coffee pot. So we don't drink decaf in the house. We just
I was gonna say, so no black coffee for you, Will.
So I get up to
that out.
Yeah, I know. When she was like orange hair and she was looking around, so they were on that. We'll fast forward. They send him upstairs, and we were on the 5th floor, and this is when things start to get a little more serious. Will was he looked at me and he says, I am dying. And at this point, I still was like, Will, this was not in the video. They said you're going to be okay. Just hug your pillow.
Yeah.
Quit being dramatic. You're going to be okay. And he goes, I'm telling you, I am dying. So I'm just talking to him and just trying to get his mind off of things. And he started to rip his clothes off. And he was very combative, and he was very nasty towards me. And he just was not himself. And I knew right there something was seriously wrong. He was sitting in the chair, like naked, practically out in the hall, and his oxygen just kept dropping. They were trying everything that they could, and nothing was working for his to get his oxygen up. Mm-hmm. Now, the next 3 days, I don't remember a thing. I have no memory. I don't. Okay. And I take it as an absolute blessing from God. I think that he realizes it's probably not something at the time that I was prepared to handle, because I don't remember anything. And the last thing I remember is just seeing Will sitting there, his oxygen just dropping down. He didn't know who anybody was, what anything was. The only thing that he knew, and I'm not talking politics, they said, who is the president? And the only question he could get out was Trump. Yeah. He didn't know who I was, but he knew Trump was president. Yeah. So I knew it was bad. I knew
probably kind of goes right along with him just being, I would think, a correctional officer and just knowing certain things. I don't know, just going off of some of my brothers and what they've been through and in the military and being correctional officers as well. I could see, but I could also see your response like, wait, you
right,
not me?
It was like, okay.
Well, all right.
So sometimes I don't let him forget that one. I'm like, but remember when you didn't remember who I was?
You can't live that
would not be the first time.
Oh, shoot. Oh,
Um,
it's okay.
but yeah, like I said, the next 3 days I remember nothing. And one of the
That is-
hardest things that I dealt with, now he was sedated for 54 straight days.
Oh,
54
my
straight
God.
days. And in that time, I could not remember the last words that we said to each other. And that was very, very, very difficult for me. It was very haunting for me because I could not remember what did we say, you know?
Yeah, that would be very difficult.
And I thought if I never get to see him and talk to him again, and I don't remember the last thing that we said, it was very, very difficult. So, you know, if I could pass anything else on, just always, always tell your loved ones you love them. Never let anything go, you know, unsaid of any sorts, because you just do not know what the next
A
minute
woman
holds.
after my own heart. Like, don't
So
go to bed and let it fester to the next morning. It's never worth it.
we are not promised tomorrow, and it's just a big, and I'm so thankful though that I didn't have to carry that burden for the rest of my days. That
I am too.
But yeah, I don't remember, like I said, for 3 days, nothing. The next thing I remember is my children. We have two sons. They are they at the time they were 22 and 23. And so I mean they were young, but it's not like they were, you know, babies yet or anything.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to talk to my children and explain to them what they were going to see. But in my own memory, this is the very first time that I remember even seeing Will. But obviously, I had seen him prior to that because I was telling them, you know, what they were going to experience. But I don't remember it until my children entered into that room. And I guess like maybe mom mode took over, you know, because now I remember what went on from there. And there was a hallway. Will was the first room. And, you know, my boys hadn't experienced anything like that. They really haven't seen great illness. So they're like walking in like, oh, we'll be fine. We're volunteer firemen. You know, we can handle this. You know, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So we go into the room and Will was on ECMO. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with ECMO.
No.
ECMO Will was the very first one at Jefferson Hospital to be on ECMO and ever survive off of ECMO. Generally, when you are on ECMO, it is a very, very last resort that is pretty devastating. It's basically like a glorified heart and lung machine. He had tubes that was in his neck that was this big around that went into his groin. And I'm telling you, they were this big. And I looked at the nurse. I remember saying, "Are those brown colored?" And she said, "That is his blood that is being circulated through out of his artery in his groin into the machine and then back into there." And he was on that for 3.5 days. They had to pull in specialists. Like there's just not you have to be a specialist just to run this machine. And they came in from a hospital in Pittsburgh because Will was too critical at this point to even be moved. They came in from a hospital in Pittsburgh and they sat there in front of that machine 24 hours a day. And that's all they did was man this machine for 3.5 days. After you're on it for like so many days, you start to lose limbs, brain damage starts to occur. So at that point, let me go back. So I'll go back to my kids. So my kids come in, they see him. My youngest son, and I wish I had the picture to show, but my youngest son, he came in, seen his dad. You couldn't even move in the room. There were so many machines. He backed up against the wall and he just collapsed. He went down like a ton of bricks. They got him out of the room and he went out into the waiting room and my mom was there. Then because his blood pressure went so high and dropped so low, he started with a nosebleed. It was very, very traumatic for my son to, you know, experience that.
And like you said,
my other son,
these are, you know, your sons. These aren't sheltered. you know, kids here
Yeah.
or young men.
It was very
Wow.
difficult in order to comfort them. Like I just didn't know what to do for them.
Right.
You know, I just felt like there was nothing I could really do. And they were both opposite. My older one, he dealt with it by not really wanting to be there. Where my other son, the one that collapsed, he's more like me. He had to be there the entire time and know everything that was going on. And that's a whole other lesson in there. My thing is, you know, not your children might not all act the same. And if I was okay, if my older one didn't have to be there, didn't mean that he didn't love his dad any less or more.
No.
He just was not able to handle seeing his dad like that.
Yeah.
Where the other one is like me, like I want to know everything that's going on.
Nothing to do with love. Yeah.
Yeah, it just does just how they were able to handle it in their own.
Cope with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So so when he was on ECMO, the 3.5 days, the first thing the doctor came out and said to me was, "It is do or die time for Will." And I looked, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "We have to take him off of ECMO. He's starting to get too much effects from it." You okay?
Yeah.
He's starting to get too much effects from it. We have to take him off ECMO. If he does not survive, there's nothing else that we can do for him. So we called my family, and this was one of 4 times that I had to call my family in. So we called our family in, and they took him off, and we waited. And after a couple hours, he come out and he said, "Will is holding his own, but and this is this brilliant cardiothoracic surgeon." And he goes, "But he is very, 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 very critical." And those were his exact words. He didn't even know how else to explain it to me.
Yeah.
He said, "It's going to be a rough, long road, and I can't promise you anything, but I'm telling you right now, he is surviving off of the ECMO." So that was one of our our great sign right there in the beginning that he was going to fight with everything he could. At this point, though, he was fully sedated. He was ventilated on the ventilator. It was maxed out. There was really no other place for them to go on with the ventilator. They couldn't even go any higher. But as days went on, there were so many ups and downs and ups and downs. One second it seemed like so he had to have emergency. They emptied up 2.5 Coke cans full of fluid from around his heart. They wanted to do more, but he started to crash. He would only give them like 20 minutes to do the surgery. He was so critical that it took them 45 minutes to move him 20 feet from his room to the operating room, because they would take a step and they would adjust things. They would take a step, they would adjust things. It took them six of them to just move everything to get Will into the operating room in order for them to do this surgery. And for most of the time, Will was just one-on-one with the nurse. There was so much going on that he only had, one nurse that was just taking care of him at all the time. She didn't have any other patients. Yep. So in that time that Will was in the CVU unit, I did not leave the hospital. I slept there. I stayed there. I didn't leave. I wasn't going home. I just couldn't leave him. I said, "There's just no way." I'm like, "That is my husband. He is in there fighting. I am not leaving. I have no purpose to go home. My purpose is to be with him, and I'm not leaving this hospital." And I slept in a chair, and people brought me food. I had a cooler. We teased and said I had my own little apartment there. Like if somebody sat in my chair when I got up, like I got mad. Like, this is my chair.
Yeah, I'm gonna have one thing. It's that chair.
Yes, this is it.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't leave, and I had just stayed there. And I had a lot of visitors, of course. And in that time, our pastors had come in, and this was really one of my first really strong step out of faith kind of situations that I kind of had faced myself. We were in the waiting room, and my pastors were there, and like I said, we started praying, and before I knew it, that entire waiting room was holding hands in prayer for all their family members that was in the in the CVU unit.
Wow.
And I'm talking the entire CVU waiting room. There was a big circle. We were all holding hands, praying, and everybody, you know, together. It was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
There was one other
Heaven on
time.
earth for a minute.
Yes, it was just, oh, if we could just all experience that all the time. It was just,
I know.
and people, you know, with things that are going on these days, people are craving that, you know.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that, you know, we're always like, oh, we don't want to offend anybody. But I had so many people that came up to us and was like, you know, heard us praying, like, oh, can you pray for my mom or my dad or whoever. I was in an elevator with my one pastor. We were going up to get something to eat, and this lady said, will you please pray for my husband? We rode the elevator up and down like 6 times, and we prayed with this lady. It was just incredible to be able to experience that. And I thank God every day that he used.
It's so touching. It's so touching that the spirit was there strong enough that these people felt like they could ask.
Yeah.
From
because
the
so often we feel like we're a burden, right? And that's
It
so
felt
amazing.
comfortable.
Yes, yeah.
I think that was my first realization that I knew that the Lord was going to use this situation for something good, to bring
Right.
glory, and to be able to will and myself to be able to witness, you know, for him. Because it just goes on from there. But I'll kind of skip. I mean, I'm sure you can understand there was a lot of ups and downs throughout every day, long days, a lot of scary moments.
Long days.
You know, they called us in, and they when they did the emergency surgery, they called us in again. Your family needs to come in. We don't think he's going to survive the surgery. That was like the second time, and of course, he survived the surgery. You okay?
What a trooper.
And so he's, you know, of course he survived that surgery. And I'm just getting to the part of the story where I really want him to be here. So
No, we can pause and we can just.
You know, I'm just in shock because even though you share a lot on your posts, one of the things that stood out the most was the condition he has with his lungs, where the scar tissue kind of build up, kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was one of his, I don't know, main conditions, and it sounds like maybe that it is, but we haven't even started talking about that.
Nope.
I mean, I was thinking that would be one of the first things that you would be getting into, and I mean, maybe you guys have, you know, seen it on my face, you know, during this, but my picking up my jaw off the floor here, Shelley, you know, that's just.
Yeah, there hasn't even really
this.
even reared its ugly head yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that I feel like we can walk with you in similarities with some things, and then, but then you just, I mean,
You know what?
I'm already stunned at the miracles. I'm already. And like you said, you haven't even got to the meat of it.
Well, when we think that, you know, one of the things that I know people that watch this experience is so much of this is just going on. You haven't shared your story. Very little people know or see about it. And you know, during times where you're not in that with them, you go to the grocery store. And not that people don't have problems, I'm not saying that at all, but sometimes there is a drastic difference, right, in terms of what you're seeing on TV and what you're seeing.
Right.
And for me to, I've gone through a lot with her. I've been talking a lot with people, and I'm still just shocked at what I'm hearing. I couldn't imagine. You talk about you guys not being able to remember, and I think that just shows you, we talk a lot about grace on here. That's got to be a blessing in terms of our defense mechanisms. Being like, that's like
that pull that he felt a few weeks before.
Yeah.
Was because I had a similar experience with my brother who's passed, and he was in the room with me all of a sudden, and it was right before my second tumor removal, and little did I know my adrenals would zero out during surgery. And he came to me and simply said, "Live." And to me, I didn't know he quite literally, he meant it literally in, choose life. And I'll go into my own stories later on my own. But so that's what I mean by when I say we can walk with you a little bit and understand a little bit. But the miracle that both of you are, and the fact that you are just, not just have fought this and are fighting this, but with such beautiful smiles and spirits, it's stunning. And the Lord knew, and he absolutely was there and prepared you somewhat, as much as he could, right?
Good. And protected me through quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you tell the story with a lot of a sobering amount of detail, even some of the stories.
I was going to say, you really take us there.
Yeah, because even even though we've been sharing, kind of the stories with people, and they have that opportunity, they get to choose how much they get into and things. Sometimes we aren't able to get as good of a visual, and as you've been talking, it's brought me back to the hospital. When I was watching Nell die in front of me, or the moments where she, we both feel like that there's just no more coping strength in us. We're just gonna both combust. So yeah, forgive me if I'm just
Nope, I get it.
being kind of like, because that's
you're taking him. You're reminding him of where he was and
where it was.
Well, and you have the strength. By the way, you can have a similar in terms of kind of a comparison, right? You've been the caretaker, and you've gone through your own story while he was going through that, and it's been kind of the reverse. And I envy you in a lot of ways. You might not look at you as strong, but I am wheezy.
Oh.
I'm very sensitive to those things. If you want to kill me early, have me have me work in the hospital. I'm not kidding you. I would die early if I had to be, around that reality. It's just I'm just sensitive to it.
He's in complete awe of you, rightfully so.
I'm in awe because I think, okay, well,
and
fine, you've done some tough things.
Will, I'm fighting harder just for you, bud.
It's like this is how I feel, and then we'll move on since good to have you back, Will. I feel like if anybody were to say, as we shared our story, hey, there's some strength there, good on you or whatever, that it would be as if I'm like, they're saying that as I'm like, I feel like I'm barely holding on. I'm like barely doing her justice, right? I'm like a mangled mess. And you're like coming across like, Superwoman, I can do anything,
That is like that's the control freak that's in me.
Yeah,
as much as
I'm feeling pretty weak,
Well, clearly you were blessed with things that were needed, very, very needed.
Yeah,
and it's just a process. Is just every day process that just just build up from from there. I knew that Will would do the same thing. For me. So it's like, buckle up, Buttercup, here we go. So,
exactly.
And just another reminder, anytime we have these interviews, of course, we're just talking not only about some specifics with each other, but people want to tell their story. We're getting more bookings. we have a comment here from Marjorie Griffin. One, I've been seeing your comments, by the way, my friend, as we've been having this interview, and she talks about how absolutely this is all of them, right? It's their stories. It's having them feel like absolutely I'm being seen, and whether you have an opportunity to be in an interview or whether you're making comments about some of what you're going through. 100%. Nell said it over and over and over. This is about everybody and all of what you guys are going through. 100%.
It's like it's validation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just whenever you hear somebody out, oh, like, okay, wow, yes, I'm not crazy, or that was the right thing, or it was okay to feel that way because somebody else did.
We see you, we hear you.
We see you.
This is why
hear you.
We consider our really tight group and all of you in both lives family, and we don't just say that lightly.
You're welcome.
We're very protective. I don't know if any of you have seen the past interviews, but I can get I can get pretty protective, like a mother hen, with all of you. And like you said in the beginning, that we think of each other often, every day, and it's because we love each other so much,
right?
And we understand each other in a way that so much the rest of the world can't. And
it's such an insult when people feel that all of our stories have anything to do with someone being insane or being a crybaby or you're making it up. I mean, we can go on and on. Yeah. And there's not a lot of places in the world where people can go to be like, you know what? They're wrong about that. They don't realize that they're wrong when they're thinking that or when they're saying that, but they are. And in time, they'll learn that. But for now, that's not what I'm drawn to. Where are the people that are saying the opposite?
That's what I was just going to say.
Where are the people that are saying you are sane and you are a badass warrior and you are an inspiration, right, and you don't have to prove it or show me, it can be invisible and I will validate you. And so, we just thank you for, we wanted to have you, that we ended up having you booked out a little bit further. We were blessed enough to be able to get you a little bit earlier, my friend, and you also joined us on the recent TikTok Purple.
Yeah, such a blessing.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Oh, I love you, Mom.
Because I know you're about to take us somewhere.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Yeah, because you're changing all the people, and it isn't just about Nell. I mean, we say that again, but I'll just say it because we get some comments in here that kind of prompts me that. But people like you and people that are making comments in the comments, they are influencing the mindset for our own selves. Because part of the abuse or trauma or negativity that can be out there is that when we hear those messages, we might tend to start believing them, right? The lies.
Yeah.
And then that can get inside of you where you're questioning, wait a minute, and maybe I am going for, or whatever. And so...
Or feeling like you're less than. Or you don't mean anything to this world anymore. You don't serve in the way everyone wants you to serve.
Yeah, exactly. So continue.
But yes, please, we're ready. I
join
took a big long drink of my OJ.
Yeah. And if you want to, if you're watching this or if you're in the comments and you're not already scheduled,
I'm letting them know right now.
Yeah, send a message to me and send me some of the information that you go through. It may be a little bit of time, a little bit of a wait.
Not too much, don't worry.
Yeah, but we want to get you booked. Okay, so absolutely.
Okay.
So with that was a nice little bit of an intermission.
I know. I think I kind of needed that.
I know. I needed to. I was a little shell shocked. My face kind of probably didn't have much of an expression there. I literally was just kind of shocked with what we were hearing because Anyway, continue.
I'll try and ease you into it just a little bit. In the next couple weeks that had gone on, the Will, like I said, was completely sedated. I did not I hadn't seen his eyes now already for, it was like a month now. He wasn't able to hold my hand or tell me he loved me or smile or anything like that. And it was very difficult.
Yeah,
I
on
did
your
get somewhere
relationship.
like, you have to go home, you have to take care of yourself. And it just angered me so much. And I know that they were coming from a good place, that we have to
Yeah,
take care of
yeah.
ourselves. But I finally said to the one, he was like he was a pastor that, came into the church and stuff. And he kind of gave the same, speech to me. You got to go home. You got to get some rest, take care of yourself. And I says, why? What is waiting for me at home? I said, what everyone doesn't realize, I miss my husband. I miss him.
Yeah,
I
there's a
haven't
whole
been able to
other
talk to him.
there's
Hold
a
his,
whole
I've
other
been with,
aspect of the relationship other than caregiving and the
yes.
grieving process is that's a huge
Oh, yeah, Rex didn't leave. He didn't change his clothes for days.
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
Mhm.
and I mean even the guilt of just like you're saying, just there's this whole whole complicated dynamic that I think caretakers are empathizing with.
And he said to me, I never thought of it that way. And he says, I have to really stop telling people that, you look at it as, patient and, there's a spouse, take care of yours, but you don't realize, the emotional side, like you miss them or, it's lonely. And if I would have went home, it would have been more stress for me not being with him. And even from the beginning, I kind of did all this, like I did not ever want any regret with anything. That was
I can't. Oh, okay. Hold on. I gotta time out for a second. When I was in LDS hospital after her adrenals failed, and I thought I was gonna lose her, and I think the only way I got through that is two things. I don't believe that week that I stayed there was because of my own virtue and strength. For one.
And he said he felt carried.
If I were to have relied on just the good guy that I am, I would have failed her. So make that known that it doesn't matter how good people think you are or how much your spouse was, that there are just some circumstances where you are absolutely going to be set up for fail unless you get strength and virtue. So there's that one. And then the second one was along with what you were saying. I was I don't know whether you want to call it fight or flight reaction, but I remember thinking, what kind of road and consequence, what kind of legacy am I going to, how am I going to respond to this? What kind of character am I going to be? Am I going to be one that, whatever we're going to go through, or is this the moment that I just fall apart and we fall apart or whatever? And I just remember kind of being at that moment where it was like, I have a choice. And maybe that's kind of what you're talking about. But I've never heard anybody said that. And that's actually something that's been to some degree kind of private, and being at that scary places, right? In terms of, wow, this is like a big deal. How am I going to respond to this? So go ahead.
Exactly. It's exactly what I was thinking with it.
Yeah.
And there was quite a bit of decisions that needed to be made that was on my part that I had to make. And this is horrible. This might be horrible to say, but I knew that, I had such comfort. I knew that Will was saved. So if he did not make it out of something, I knew that he was saved. Okay. And I had that comfort with it.
Yeah.
Then there was us that was left. And I just wanted to make sure on my own that I would be able to live peacefully, knowing the things that the decisions that I had to make was the right ones, to do. So if somebody wants to call that selfish, so be it. But that's
not horrible. It's not selfish.
Yeah,
I think that's completely understandable. Yeah.
And beautiful, honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thing, it's just being brutally honest. But so Will, from the time that we have always, from our first date, Will has always bought me yellow roses. Yellow's my favorite color, always got me yellow roses. It just like, turned into our thing. Every time he got me flowers for something, he always would get me, yellow roses. So it was Mother's Day. And I said I was gonna get it, but it's in the other room. It was Mother's Day, and I was having a particularly, bad kind of feel sorry for me kind of day. I miss Will. There was no answers. It was just getting frustrating. It was scary. And I just was starting to really question a lot in my own faith. Like, what is your, with God, even though I knew it wasn't, but I'm still, human. His nurse comes walking in. I'm going to try and get through this. His nurse comes walking in and she says, I hope this is okay. And I don't know why. She says, but I just felt this need to hand you this yellow rose. She said, I know it's nothing, big. She was like, but I just wanted you to have this. And I start crying. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to upset you. When I gathered myself up, I had said to her, I told her the story of how Will always would buy me yellow roses. When she come walking in with that yellow rose, nobody knew. She didn't know about the yellow rose. God still provided a way for Will to tell me Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
And that he was still here and he was still fighting, and for me not to give up. And I still have that rose. It was a wooden, one of those wooden roses.
Yeah.
I still have it.
Yeah.
It's like one of my most prized possessions.
Yeah, I would never. I would encase that. That is so stunning. And that goes along with kind of what we push for with Spoonful of Sugar, is serving each other and being willing to hear those small voices, because this is what happens. This is what happens. Beautiful, beautiful miracles. And moments of complete awe and unexpected, just stunning graciousness that cannot be answered other than he loves us and he's watching us and he's working with us for each other.
Amen. All the time.
Yeah.
It was just I have so many stories of that. Yeah. And it was also, I think, because it was preparing me for what was also to come, because I knew I was getting beat down. I was getting tired. I was, starting to question things. Yes. And then I get this yellow rose and I just got filled up with this like renewed energy and strength, and just to be able to go on.
That simple act, but it was so powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh. And I'm so thankful that she listened, this nurse listened.
Yeah.
To this, because I might not have ever had that if she was like, I'm not doing this, she's going to think I'm weird. The fact that she had listened was just, incredible. And I still
very in tune.
People in tune, that you can.
But even a step further, like you were saying, a lot of us might hear that and feel that prompting, but we're like, no, that doesn't fly in this world, Heavenly Father. I'm not going to be, just do it, you guys.
I'm not going to be the weirdo that does this,
So
exactly.
Weirdo, you did it anyway.
Exactly. That's why it's like, just step out and just do it. And just be strong. And if you hear that, just know that is there. You'll have the strength behind it. It'll be received. Yes. And even if it doesn't feel like it is received at the moment, you've planted a seed for maybe later on down the road of something. So
it's a situation where you cannot go wrong, in my opinion, because just like you said, if it's not received in that moment, he will work with that person, and we don't know when someone's completely depleted, they're exhausted, they can't even think straight. They will receive it. And that's not up to us.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
am so that nurse will be in my prayers. Seriously, what a beautiful, beautiful thing.
That's very
Amazing.
sacred. Sometimes people keep stuff like that to themselves because it moves into being sacred. So we appreciate you
I know.
sharing that.
Oh, no, if more people, realize and reach out and be like, I remember when I missed that opportunity. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to, reach out to somebody, or
It's
even if it's a
great
phone
lesson.
call or anything, just you
Yeah.
never know. Because the
Yep.
weekend of Memorial Day, things were looking extremely bleak for Will.
So
Things
from
that they
beginning,
were,
real quick, from beginning, okay, stroke, I'm talking. How much time has passed?
we are on 54 days.
Oh my word.
Well, it was about
Okay.
52 days.
And you're going back home and trying to keep working, or
I'm not going home. I did
no?
not
He's
leave
not
that
leaving him.
hospital the entire time. I
Yeah.
slept there. I stayed there. I ate there. I slept in a
Nice.
chair. I made friends with them. The cleaning people got me into a shower in a spare room.
Oh.
At one point, they got me a bed. Like, there was this hallway, and then there was like this open kind of like coat closet thing with a water fountain in there where you could hang your coats. It was a little cove, and they put a
Yeah.
bed in there for me. And I even I
Wow.
slept in there. At one point, the physician's assistants that were there, like the PAs, they actually made a room for me in the conference room inside the CVU unit. They got me a little table and juice, and they set this whole thing up for me. So
Oh
I
my
stayed there
God.
for a couple days, and it was just, God just provided everything that I needed in that hospital through those people. And none of my stuff was ever stolen. I would just go off and go, my stuff would all be there. Everything was just protected. It was
Yes.
just, and I stayed there. I did not leave. But at this point, I was back in the CVU unit most of the time with Will, now pretty much 24/7. In the recliner chair, they had set me up. I was very respectful to them. I was quiet. I didn't get in the way, none of that stuff. But I had started to build relationships with them,
I bet.
just by telling stories of Will. That's where the "You Are My Sunshine" comes about. I would always sing to
Yeah.
him, "You Are My Sunshine." Um, to him. I talked to him constantly. And so I would tell them stories about Will and and stories about with us. And there was just a connection that was built because I was there, for so long. And so they just kind of felt like they knew him, too, from that.
Was
And
it? Was he in a coma?
he
They
was
had
he
him
was fully
sedated,
sedated. Yes, they had him medically sedated
which is
because
why
he
he
was
has
on a
all these
ventilator.
other side effects.
Which is a medically induced coma, basically.
Yes, yes. Because he was on the bed, and he was on the trach. He was intubated about 3 times longer than he should have been. His one doctor just did not want to try and put him on a trach because getting off of a trach is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they didn't even really, at this point, understand the impact that his lungs had already. And so whenever they discovered that, they did not want to put him on a trach, but it got to the point where they had to, they had to trach him. So, so they had trached him, and like I said, the weekend of Memorial Day, he was not doing very well at all. The pulmonologist and the pulmonologist and neurologist came in to the room, and they said, your husband is no longer here. He is brain dead. He's never getting off of this ventilator. There is nothing else that we could do. And it's, about time that you make the decision that we just turn everything off. And I was just like, actually, whenever they told me that, it was kind of almost, I never had one question. I knew Will would not want to live like that. Who would? And I knew that I would not put him through that anything. I was not going to put him in a home somewhere just for selfish reasons. No, I wasn't going to do it. And so I had called, this is the one time I went home. I called my boys over to our home and I sat them down at the table. It was the hardest conversation I ever had to have. And I said to them, this is the decision that I made. I made this decision. I didn't want them to have any burden on them. I didn't want them to feel that it was like part of, if I would have said, what do you think? I didn't give them that option because I didn't ever want them to have any doubt, any regret, any worry, what ifs. I said, this is a decision that I made, and I didn't want them to even have any feelings against with their dad. Like, why didn't he fight harder? Or why this or why that? If they had to put something on, I wanted that to be, on me. So I told them, this is a decision that I made. And they knew how their dad was, and I explained to it. And I said, he wouldn't want to live like that. And this is what, we're going to do. And, they accepted that. They were, even though they were devastated by it, they understood. And when I went back to the hospital, I called my entire family in. I wanted my family to be able to talk with Will and say what they wanted to say before we did any other testing, with the EEG for, the brain activity and stuff like that. To me, I just thought, I just had more comfort in that. So my entire family comes in, they say everything that they need to say. They're all out in the waiting room. There was the woman that does the EEG with the brain activity. It was the weekend of Memorial Day, and she was actually away. She was on vacation. She's the only one in the hospital that does this. And they said, we have to wait, till she comes back on Tuesday, because we can't shut everything off until she does it. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you're coming to me here on a Friday, and now you're going to tell me I have to wait till a Tuesday.
Yeah, brutal.
I said, this is completely unfair. I said, this can't happen. I said, I got the head of the nursing, and I said, can you please just call her? I said, just call her, explain the situation, and just ask her to come in. And he could have lied to me and said he did, and she said no, but he didn't. He called her, and she said, I will be right there. She left her family on vacation, drove a couple hours just to come to do this test so that we could have some peace. And so she came in and she did the test for us. And of course, they can't really tell you anything. So there's like a whole process. They have to reduce the sedation because you can't get good readings if you're sedated. So
That's true.
Reduce the sedation, and then they were doing the testing, and she left, and then the nurse came in and kind of explained what the next process would be, what I might experience, what Will might do. If there is movement, it could just be reactions of, reflexes and stuff. So my family had gone out. I was in there all night, good part of the night with my mom. My mom had left, and I was in there, by myself, and they go and shut everything, like all the sedation stuff off, go to shut everything, down. And before his nurse even left the room, Will opened his eyes. I have not seen for 54 days Will's eyes in 54 days. And he opened his eyes. And as soon, right then and there, I knew that Will was still here. I mean, he just looked at me, and I knew it. So I said to the nurse, I'm like, is this normal? Like, he opened up his eyes, I'm like,
yeah.
She turned around. She didn't even leave the room yet. She turned around. She came in. I didn't know this at the time, but she was a Christian. And she came into that room, and her first reaction was she grabbed my hand, Will's hand, before she asked any other questions, and she started to pray over Will while we were holding hands, and just prayed for him, to be able to respond, and for healing, and the whole bit. Just started to pray. As she was praying, and this took me a long time to actually share this part because I still cannot find the words to express properly what I had experienced.
Right.
But as she was praying and I was standing there, that entire room became alive. It had an energy, a light that just started. I remember looking at one end of the room and just following the room all the way around and just seeing all this energy and light. And I was filled with such an amazing, it was such peace, comfort, and reassurance in that time that had happened. And it happened so quickly, but I felt like I was standing there forever. And it was, I still can't come up with the words to express what I felt. It was absolutely incredible. As much as that part of it, I'm so glad that I experienced. It also come with a burden, because I know that right then I was in the presence of God. And what I felt was incredible.
Yes.
But my heart aches for those that have not or will not know their Savior, and to be separated from that and never have that feeling. It's heartbreaking for me. Very, very heartbreaking for me, because I can't imagine being separated from that for eternity. So it's just, I've been trying to become bolder and talk with more, but it was something I will never ever forget, is
Good for
feeling
you.
that presence right there. So she kind of into reality. And she said to Will, she was like, Will, she's yelling his name. She's like, can you squeeze my hand? And so now you remember, he was what, 240 pounds. He lost 100 pounds, in this time. He was down to 140 pounds. So he was just like skin and bones. And she said, can you squeeze my hand? And so he squeezed and then I felt him very weakly squeeze my hand. And then she says, can you wiggle your toes? And you could see his toes just very weakly moving.
Oh.
And
my.
so, there was like a whole other, everything just started happening very quickly, because now this changed everything. But he started to respond. He knew his name. He was moving his eyes to whoever was talking to him, because of course I started talking to him and I was crying, and he's like looking like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
At this point, I ran out into the waiting room, and I said to them, I said, Will's still here. He's still with us. He's responding. And of course, the whole entire waiting room just erupted into just, cheers. And it was just unbelievable to be able to come out and explain that. When they had called the doctors to tell them, they said, you guys, there's no way. He said, you've become too close with this family that you are seeing things that are not there. And there's just absolutely no way that he is not brain dead. And so he actually came in, and I was in the waiting room. Some of my other family was there. Of course, this is like the next day and all. And he came in and he's talking with my family. He says, I have no medical explanation as to why your husband is responding and why he is still here. And of course, I'm like, I could tell you, because that's my God that I serve. I'm like yelling in the wind. He's just like looking at me, and he goes, it has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
So it was just amazing whenever this doctor was like, it has to be, because I don't have an explanation for it. So so that weekend that we were told he was brain dead, he proved them all wrong, and that is not it, and that God still had plans for him. So
very much.
as time went on, we didn't realize, like, he's still did not, he only knew who I was. He still at this point had so much sedation in him. It took so long to get out of his system. He didn't know who our children was, things like that.
Right.
It was very frustrating for him. He couldn't communicate because he was so weak. He just was not able to write letters, even point on a board for letters.
Yeah,
He was, starting to get, frustrated, and I would just be talking to him. And one of the things that I knew that Will was still going to be okay with how everything that happened, because honestly, I was a little bit worried. I'm like, here he is, he goes up, he gets saved. And then 3 weeks later, he's here fighting for his life. Anybody would question, like, what did I just do? I give my life over to the Lord, and now I'm like fighting for it. And I'm in this, and I'm trached, and I can't move, and I lost 100 pounds. Like, what is going on? And so as I'm talking to Will, and I'm, as his wife and everything, and I'm saying, honey, I'm so proud of you. Thanks for fighting. I just, I love you. I'm so glad you fought back to us. And he looked at me, and he just shook his head. And the very first movement that he was able to make, he pointed up. He looked at me, shook his head, and he pointed up to the Lord. And I was like, yes, he's standing strong. Mm-hmm. So it was like just such an uplifting, moment that we both were able to share, together. And he kind of put things in perspective. He couldn't even talk, and he kind of put things in perspective for me. I'm like, yeah, I need to
He gave a very clear message.
Yeah,
it's as simple as it gets. Yeah,
That's
like,
all you needed.
that's what happened. Yeah.
So then I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, and they had him up in a cardiac chair. He still has a feeding tube in. He's still on all kinds of machines and the trach, but they have him up in a cardiac chair. And I had to leave that day to go fill out all these goofy FMLA papers and such, for work, and, life still was going on. And they got him up out of the chair, and my mom was there, but she was able to record it for me. He actually took, about 4 or 5 steps to his doorway in his room. And this was about 4 days after they woke him up. And he got up, and he took steps into the doorway. And then they turned around, they got him, sat back down. The next day, he made it to the doorway and out into the hall. The next day after that, it was the doorway, out into the hall, down the hall. I mean, there was just no stopping him.
No.
Yeah. And
when does he start remembering?
It was weeks. It was weeks.
Oh, really?
So weeks after you start remembering, kind of weeks after, Will?
Yes.
Do you remember your first memory, Will, after?
Not really, no.
You don't remember your first?
Everything's pretty much kind of a blur.
Yeah.
When did it start getting a little bit more clear? Like if you were to just randomly say, hey, this is when I compare, I could say that I've got a memory of, are we talking like, 6 months ago, a year ago?
I don't really remember.
Do you remember coming home?
Yeah.
So you still remember us coming home. Do you remember being up on the 5th floor?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of almost like when you're in a drunken state.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah.
And then when somebody like tells you something, it's like, oh yeah, now I kind of remember
okay.
that. Kind of
so when you say something that you could say something, it helps the memory trigger a little bit better.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because he still has a lot of that from, the residual of with the stroke. Because it took him a long time to finally remember. And we were sitting here the one day, and he goes, and I never even thought to ask him. He said to me, he's like, I was dreaming whenever I was sedated. And I was like, what? I never even thought to ask him. And so he proceeded to tell me, what his dream was. And do you want to tell them what?
I had a dream that I was an animated duck on a cruise ship, playing softball,
Promoting for what? Veterans.
promoting a movie for veterans.
Oh wow!
Wow.
So he was.
And what, I
he
had
was
you locked
fighting
in the
more
room?
fighting.
She had me locked in the ship room.
Wow.
Because everyone's like, well, did you
That's
see
so-
God? You know, what did you not? Did you see
Yeah,
the
we
light?
was
Did
just-
you see God? And it was like, and if we feel like we let like people down, like when he says, no, I was an an animated duck. But like I said, the Lord wasn't ready for him.
It was-
He wasn't ready for him. So he
did you
didn't,
say animated duck?
an animated duck. We still can't figure it out. An animated duck on a cruise ship, but I kept
Yeah.
locking him in a room, and he was promoting, trying to help the veterans. So we still can't quite figure that out. Now he didn't remember all that at one time. He started piecing stuff together.
Yeah.
Things would trigger his memory, and then he was able to, put stuff together as to what, what he was dreaming while he was, being sedated. But it was
One of the
It's like-
things that I want to call out, that moment where I had asked a question and then you kind of adapted it in a way that you are more used to in terms of how you would remember something. I thought that was beautiful because there's times where Nell, she doesn't have, like, she'll lose her train of thought easily. And so just adapting in conversation to pause, to let her finish, and to let her finish her thought. Just, you learn to kind of adapt based upon kind of some of those changes that have been introduced into your lives, right?
Right. Well, like Will feels more comfortable, like even coming on with this, he was like, you're going to make sure you do all the talking, right? And we go over and stuff and things because he just is, with not remembering everything, he just feels uncomfortable. And so it's like, of course.
Well, yeah, don't ever feel uncomfortable.
Oh, I hope.
I am like, look what I'm doing now, and I'm like, Sometimes I think even in the chat has helped me a few
She's
times.
my
Like,
voice.
it's okay, take your time. You're good.
She always my
Yeah, I
voice.
hope that you feel. I hope that you don't feel nervous or worried
You are
at all.
so good
You're
with us.
exceeding expectations if there even were any.
Exactly. I'll tell you
if
something,
you feel
Will.
comfortable with everything.
Your name was very appropriately given to you because you embody it in
Will.
every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, really.
Your name.
I will
Your
be done.
name, Will, is just it was perfectly given to you. That's what you are. That's what you
Well,
embody.
The cute thing is, when his one fundraiser, we put, because Will is William Andrew Yanko, so his initials spell out way. So in his one fundraiser, we put where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, those I know that you. I want to just put this out there for anybody that feels comfortable. Click on the link in their bio, you guys. They've got a site there and show them some love with whatever you can do.
Thank you.
Towards their expenses and things.
And always following and liking and all of that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You bet.
He where did I leave off? Taking the steps and walking and things like that. And
It was smashing goals.
it was
Weren't even
just
there.
yeah. And it was at one point they were like, okay, Will, like you need to like slow down, like pace yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
You're pushing a little like too much. And it was like,
Yeah.
he's like, no, like I'm ready. Like I want to go. So I was in the one day with him and he was sitting in the cardiac chair and I was just talking with him. I was on the end of on the edge of the bed and rambling on about stuff and just telling him, everything going on. And I remember looking up at him and thinking to myself, he is awfully pale. Next thing I know, he just slumped right over. And it was like in a movie. I seen his nurse come running into the room, and he slumped over in my lap. She grabs him, alarm circuit. I remember looking up, and he flatlined right in front of me. I just see the monitors, everything just go completely just flat. I remember feeling hands on my shoulders telling me, you got to get out, let's take care of him. And they escorted me out, and I was in the waiting room. And I remember just collapsing to my knees. I just went straight down to my knees. And I would like to say that I was mad. I was angry. It got like, if somebody would have come up to me and talked to me about Jesus right then and there, I didn't want to hear nothing about it. I was mad.
Oh, I've yelled at it. I've yelled at God pretty harsh.
And I want to express to people, because it just seems like there was, there's such this, oh, well, if we fail, God's going to turn his back on us. And, there's why even keep trying. And it's not the case, because there were many times that I got angry, I got mad, I got sad, and it is okay. It is absolutely okay. And that,
rise, that's when he holds us tighter.
Oh yeah, he's just holding you while you're doing it, Yeah.
So at that point, while I'm questioning everything and I'm angry and I'm like, I do not understand, Lord. Why is it that you brought him this far just to take him away from me now?
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just, and it wasn't. Next thing I remember feeling was somebody's hand on my shoulder and saying, honey, did you just get some bad news? What is it that I could do for you? And she just stood there. I still don't know who this person is, but just stood there and just comforted me while I was just on my knees and crying. And then I just started, praying at that point. And the next thing I remember was the doors opening up to the CVU unit, and the one nurse had come down. He was a male nurse. He came down and he said, Will is back. He came back. Not we had to bring him back. He came back on his own. When they got him up and onto the bed, he was able to came back on his own. They didn't have to do anything. No apparatuses had to do anything. Will came back on his own. And I remember walking down that hallway, and I'm going, all right, Lord, I'm really sorry for that. But
I'm really sorry. Never mind.
I'm really sorry for that.
Yeah, can we just cut that out of my life story?
Yeah.
It's say on that.
Just kidding.
Can we skip some of the lessons that, to like say, how much more do I have to show you in order to prove?
Oh, that's a just kidding moment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just testing your God. Testing you.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
But the fact that, it was just him all together. There was no other explanation that that God just was like, I got this, and I'm going to show to you one more time. So but it was a very traumatic, with all the kidding aside, traumatic, experience that I did have a very difficult time with dealing with after Will came home. So as time, and I'll go back to that, but as time went on, he started to, progress. They still didn't have an answer for the lungs. They still didn't really have an answer for the antiphospholipid syndrome. Things just started to the puzzle pieces kind of started to put together, but it took about 1.5 years for that to all happen.
Brutal.
We finally got out of the CVU unit, and he was still on the trach, and we were upstairs, and it was very nerve-wracking. I'm used to an ICU setting the entire time. Will just having all this care, one-on-one, and then you go up to a regular floor. I mean, I was like a nervous wreck. You know, I had witnessed all this stuff, and now it's kind of like, I mean, there's nurses up there. I'm not putting them down, but it was kind of like, okay, here you go. You know, figure it out. And I was like, and that is like
you and him and the Lord a lot of the time now.
There it is. So when we were upstairs and I was trying to adjust with everything, they kept telling me that he would be coming home on a trach. So I had to learn. I mean, I physically learned how to change out Will's cannula in his trach and you know, and put it back in for him. You know, I mean, meanwhile, it's like you're physically taking out their ability to breathe. But, you know, I learned how to do that because you know, if he was able to come home, I had to get over my fears. You know, I got to give him shots and stuff now too, which I, you know, just learned how to overcome that. And so I learned how to like do his trach. And when reality set in for Will, he was just not accepting this, you know, because he just was like, I'm not staying on this trach. So they tried to cap it off and he panicked, you know, because he couldn't breathe. He lasted maybe 3 seconds. And just the next day that he tried and he went like 5 minutes. And then the next day he went from 3 seconds to 5 minutes to 8 hours being capped off on with the trach. And it got to the point where his body was actually fighting off the trach and he was having more difficult time being on it than off of it because he wanted off that trach so badly. And so they would cap it off. And when at night, they still had to have him on that. And he was struggling more at night. And so they realized, so they started to downsize the cannula to prepare him to get him off of the trach. At this point, Will was very anxious. You know, he's like trying to like rush the process. And the doctor's like, we just have to take this slowly. We don't want anything to go wrong and for you to, you know, regress back to, you know, having difficulties. So it was June 25th, we got the word that Will was going to be able to get his, I'm sorry, June 23rd, we got the word that Will was going to be able to get his trach off. So they came in and they took the trach. It was, you know, such an intense moment. They came in and they were able to get him off the trach and he was able to breathe with no problems. He was able to swallow. His vocal cords were not damaged. It had crazy. No effect on him at all. And so at this point, he was on that trach for 74 days. He was either intubated or on a trach for 74 days. And now he was finally off of the trach. They gave it a couple of days to heal. On the 25th, we got the word that he was able to come home. And it was a total of 77 days that he was in there. Well, it would have been 76, but I come home to get his stuff and I didn't realize I had a Baker's cyst that was on my knee and it blew. I couldn't walk. I had to go into the emergency room and they had to admit me. And this was June 26th, the day he was supposed to come home. I was admitted into the hospital. And it was my birthday that day.
Did you regret my birthday? Go, just kidding. Just kidding, God. Now back to me. Now I'm back to the questions. What's going on?
So I'm in the hospital on my birthday. He's up on a different floor. And you know, they give me all the shots. You know, they fix my knee, do what they need to do. They knew I was this is the longest I've been away from them. So once they got my knee fixed up and they put me in a wheelchair and they put me in Will's room and we had a little cake and we celebrated and they were going to send him home. And my mom was like, listen, Dr. Park, you are not sending Will home today. She says, I cannot have Shelley in the hospital and coming home and Will coming home. My mom was like, you have to keep him like an extra day.
One day at a time. You know?
Yeah, no.
Just like I say, this is not happening. So we both got discharged from the hospital on the same day. On June 27th is when he came home. So I'm here like on a walker, and Will was walking in on his own with no walker, no nothing, and I'm on a walker.
So now he's helping you. Wow, you are
That's insane.
what a troublemaker.
I said,
Will, you're in trouble.
I mean, I guess I couldn't let him have all the
He's
attention.
like, I
So
helped her.
Yeah. Wow, you
We
cannot
pull
make
into
that
the
up.
we had like a level yard. We pull into the yard, and of course my family was there. I mean, it was like a huge, my mom was there, my brother, my sister-in-law, Will's
Aw.
sister. I mean, we had like a whole entourage there.
Yeah.
And we'll get Will out of the car. I'm trying to get out of the car, and our house has one step, and that's just to get into the house. We had a ramp, everything.
Yep.
I'm trying to get out of the car. Everyone's around, cheering, clapping, happy. Will goes to step up into the house, and he fell right back. He was so weak that when he tried to step up to get into the house, he went right down onto the cement and fell right back.
Oh, no.
I was.
Was it
He was
too early? What? You guys are
No,
giving me a
he
heart
just-
attack here. My face has
just had-
probably had every emotion throughout this live. I gotta go back and watch myself.
I'm trying to not
I
make
probably-
you laugh, but I have nothing else.
I'm probably white. I'm getting ready to pass out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
But-
girl.
And everybody's like, we weren't used to dealing with, not realizing he didn't have like that strength.
That's
And everyone's like
true.
standing around just looking at Will like on the ground, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
And you're
So
like,
it's
well, I can't help him. You guys.
Yeah,
can
I
look
was like,
at-
all right. So we get everybody
too.
into the house, and I went into my bedroom, and I actually had like every flood of emotion. Finally, I just let out. I sat in my room, and I let every emotion out that I had built up. And I was just crying uncontrollably. And I thought to myself, how am I ever going to be able to care for this man if I couldn't even get him into the house and I let him fall? Yeah. I said, what? And it was right, my mom came in and was like, this is not your fault, stuff is going to happen. It was just, but actually afterwards, I was very scared. From that point, I was like, how am I going to do this? I never questioned myself until that moment. And then from then on, I said, this will not happen. And I just, I buckled down, and from there, the care and just everything that we need to do, I just would never, that moment that happened was just, that was my defining moment, that I knew that this caretaking bit was going to be
All right.
how this was just going to have to go, to go down with Will, with everything. I just, I don't even know the words to explain it. It was just right then and there that I just knew that, this was serious. This was really more, I mean, I knew it before, but
Well, it's
reality
like
then kind of
It's
set
you
in.
sunk-
survived.
it's sunk in.
You are. And by the way, this is such an example of the importance of having a conversation about it. I think that we kind of joke here and there as we go through this. That helps anybody
Yeah, you kind of need to.
cope. But this is an example of how we could talk about some pretty heavy stuff.
Mhm.
Maybe even the viewers having all sorts of emotional reactions, kind of going along that story with you. But there's a positive element to it still, and in so much that we're hoping that creates more of those environments, because in the absence of having that kind of an environment, even if you're well intentioned and you try to share, people will shut down. Even good people will shut
Mhm.
down. You go and visit someone and you're at a family members or friends, and you're talking 15 minutes in, and they're like, okay, I don't want to be rude, but I can't, you know what I mean?
Oh, there have been people that
Yeah.
just straight out said, even just watching these are too hard. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting through in the sense of, even if anybody that's watching this is having that kind of a reaction, I'm glad that we're able to recognize that that's going to be part of it, but still have the conversation. I think that's a big deal. I really do.
Right. Don't ever be ashamed of how you feel, and just think, yeah, like, what was I? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I let like that happen, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But then you learn from it, you pick up from it, and don't be ashamed of it. I mean,
Yep.
and that is why I like to share. And I mean, as you could tell, I'm pretty bold. I don't,
Passionate,
and straightforward.
I
So, so I mean, I'll admit the things that upset me or made me angry or mad or what I thought about, and
Be
just let
authentic
that
about
out.
it.
And there's no judging there. There's, like I said, there needs to be a book on this, right? I mean, we don't go through and they made you watch this video, and I'm like, this wasn't in that video. Well,
Well, it's
there's
a
no
story
book
not
on
just
how
of
to
survival. It's not just a story of survival, but there was obviously coping that was happening through that. But you talk about what you were realizing at the moment, when you're in that house. But even now, and we talk a lot about coping and just day to day, our stories aren't over, obviously, and
sometimes this is for me, and I'm speaking obviously from the patient side of things, not for the caretaker. I don't know all, even to this day, that Rex experienced. It breaks my heart, but we go through some of the things we go through are enormous, magnificent, just in the size of it, right? And in some ways, and this is where we really relate to you as well, when Rex refused to move, just even going out of my room for a few minutes was hard on him. So very much like you refused to go, and we look back on that now, and we had our Heavenly Father and our Savior with us so much, in such a concentrated amount, to get us through what would be one of the most difficult times in our lives, for sure. That we forget that coming, the victory of getting through it, and we're alive, and we're home. Sometimes that fall can be very hard because we don't have that concentrated, I'm going to help you survive this.
Family.
And he gently lets us go, and you can do this. And that can be really alarming and difficult. And I think kind of what you're describing, when you got there and you have all these emotions and you're realizing it's me and him, and I'm the caretaker. And you for a while, it's kind of a minute by minute thing, and sometimes you're questioning yourself all along the way. Can I do this? Can I? Where's my my help on earth, and where's my heavenly help, and where's
my family?
He hasn't left, but he's letting us know that you've got this.
Well,
and that's not. It can be very unsettling, right?
Yeah, and sometimes what can obviously all the difference is family and a loving family, and there's varying circumstances that people are living with, and it's important to us, as we've said before, that family is not just blood. You guys are all family. Literally, my brothers and sisters, people that I'm become very close to and that we love. And so, you know, if you are, you know, seeing, you know, anything that draws you to not just us, but those that you see in the interview, but just the community,
yeah.
absolutely don't view it as if you're like an outsider and, oh, that would be great. You know that you guys are family, literally.
Yeah, and we're speaking to all of you on both sides there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, we have such a support group, that, you know, when we come across with you guys, and you know how just that has trickled down, it leads you to somebody else, and just the impact that they have had, and it's so real. I mean, we pull from that support and strength all the time.
Yeah.
There's been
Tell me about it.
times.
I just got chills. I mean, it is literally what, you know, you talk about having down days and stuff like that. On a selfish level, I get picked up every Thursday, and now we're doing them Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's just a huge blessing to us because we have our moments.
It really is.
You know, it wears on any good people. It wears on a marriage. It wears on an individual. It's part of the humanity
And any caretaker, whether you're a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, a partner, I don't care who you are, you're not thanked enough, and you're not not brought forward into the spotlight enough.
Yeah, really.
And that's one of our goals, as our business continues to grow and get, you know, become the nonprofit that we're working towards. So,
well, and the love in your gifts, you talk about the love that is exuded. So much of that, you know, hopefully, you know, it's coming from me and Sherry will, but, you know, Nell, you know, a long time ago wanted to reach all of you, and you know, the spoonful of sugar with the reaching out with gifts. We've got a store full of gifts basically at our home. We still have more that we need to get in terms of organizing or getting them packaged out and sent out, and even traveling. And so she's got so much love that there's enough room for everybody, and that's a lot of what you know, I at least want to just shout out, and then that's just, it just gets it's contagious.
well,
Right.
I'll tell you this, and I, you know, he's always so good to be gracious about that to me, but this is, I don't know if you've heard me say, very real dreams. And I'm saying this carefully, you guys, for everyone listening, haunted me for a long time. And that was some of them more intense because I can still be in very real pain when I'm sleeping, and I know that a lot of you know what that's like. And so that's a very difficult place to be because there's no way to wake yourself up. But Heavenly Father used that as a tool, and it was just, I was trying to find someone that was in trouble all the time, someone that was in trouble, someone that needed to be found, somebody, whether they were, you know, be able to be saved, what their life being saved or not, I just needed to find them, and that was,
even when you were
that
a girl,
became,
back with your mom.
yes,
Yeah.
and that kind of really, yeah, and I'll share more of my own experience on my channel, but yeah, since I was 5 or 6, I've had special things happen that he prepared me for many years, but Spoonful of Sugar came from when the pain was getting so bad and I was more in bed than out of bed. I didn't know where I fit in God's plan anymore. And I'm sure a lot of you here know what Spoonie means, being a Spoonie means, and that we just have only a limited number a day, right? Which is less than the normal healthy person. And I decided, and it's on this ring here that I've had for quite a while now. That's where Spoonful of Sugar was born, just for myself. I decided I do not care how many spoons I have left. I do not care if I'm negative spoons. You know, I promised Heavenly Father that whatever capacity I had for that day, that I would serve whoever He put into my mind and my heart, and that I would listen to that I would listen to Him. And you know how you're speaking about the nurse that gave you the yellow rose. It's not always easy, you guys, to say, okay, Lord, that's a little uncomfortable for me, and it's not always going to be the perfect response. But that's not our job to worry about it. Our job is to just listen and act. And that's where I found my purpose again. And then from there, Heavenly Father very gently asked me to move aside, out of His way, and asked me to walk with Him and not stand in front of Him. And when that happened, things really, really progressed, which really reminds me of Will's fight, and the reason that Will was trying to just maybe move faster than even they wanted him to. I have that same feeling, and sometimes it is too fast for what my body can handle.
Yeah.
And that's me. That's me, you know, wanting to run a little faster. But all He asked was, don't stand in my way, and I'm inviting you to walk with me. And the minute you do that, you, and I'm just speaking to everyone, the minute you do that, and He knows that your heart is truly meaning that, those words, thy will be done. Yeah. This is His. You will see miracles, and at a very quick rate, and very, very vividly. He does not waste time for people that are open and that want to help. And so now the problem with me is I can't stop having ideas, and I can't stop. Rex has to, so I don't give him a heart attack. I have to kind of feed it a little bit.
Yeah. I just have to think in the back of my mind. Not all of these are action items right now. Okay,
yeah.
let's just.
But don't you feel like you feel like you, even though you can't, I mean, you're given that strength to just, you know, all the time, just to be able to do what you want to do, even though you think, I don't know where I'm going to get this from. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, okay. Thank you, Lord, for getting me through that.
You said it perfectly, because sometimes I sit in front of this camera and it takes me, it's the behind the scenes that people don't see, that it might take me 6-7 hours to actually prepare myself, get ready. I also spend time in meditation and prayer before all of these, because you all are that to me. And I'm going to just say this, because Rex really gives me a lot of accolades. This is not me. This Spoonful of Sugar, and anything that we're about, and anything that we may do in the future, is His, completely. And it's because He, absolutely it is His. And it's because He wants every one of you found, heard, seen, and loved.
Amen.
And we will not stop until we get as far, well, I won't stop until He takes the breath from me, and I'm fine with that. This is the most, this is beyond an honor.
No, I just get to deal with a lot of the fun technical operations, scheduling, all the stuff to make it happen. That doesn't
happen.
But anyway, we make a good
Oh, no,
team. I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, definitely.
Well, all those little pieces just, have to fit together. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
we will never be able to comprehend the huge scheme of what God's plan is. I mean, there's,
You're
we're
right.
just not capable of that. So, like I said before, I have such a control kind of personality with stuff, and it was very, I still struggle with it every day to just let go sometimes and not have that control and just be like, this is what it is, and we'll get through it, because I still question, like, I always go, am I doing the right thing? Is this the
Yeah.
right thing that needs to be done? And it's just like, all right, Lord, take the reins again, pull me back, and let it happen, because there's so many things that have happened for his glory and the good. When we first shared Will's testimony at our church, it happened to be the bike run. They were having the blessing of the bikes, and there was people that were there that normally would not have been there, that heard the testimony and stuff. Weeks later, there was another blessing of the bikes, and they were a couple hours away, and our associate pastor had overheard, he was with this other couple, overheard that these people talking about this testimony of this guy who was brain dead, all this other, and he was talking about Will, and it prompted him. He said from hearing that, he went and he just started to question things, and he got saved. So
Wow.
when Will went through all that stuff, in sharing his story, even if there was one soul that got saved, amen. We'll take it. A lot of people also question, like, how does Will kind of stay so, more positive? I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have rough days and odd stuff, but he never, it's not like, why, Lord, am I still on this oxygen? And I didn't even get to the lung part, but why am I still on this oxygen? But, when we were talking and stuff, it came down, he said, if he still needs to be on oxygen to keep himself calling on God and depending on him, then he will stay on that oxygen, because, sometimes it's like, if we're just handed everything, we don't, like, what is that gonna? Well, everything's
I'm holding my hands very still because I want to go preach over and over while you're talking.
Right.
Because it's just
speaking truth.
This is what I told my mom and dad. Really, there's nine. There's 9 of us, 9 siblings, and their hearts are just so with us all the time. And my heart breaks when their heart is breaking, and they don't know what to do for me and my pain. And I finally figured out a way to tell people more than just I'm okay. And it was, I am so incredibly blessed to be tethered to this trial, because this tethers me to him more tightly. This trial is my biggest blessing, besides my husband, my children, and my granddaughter. You're just touching on all of the beauty, and this is why I tell people, of course you can find joy and peace and love, and through it all, you don't have to be pain-free. You don't have to be cured. You don't have to be, goals not even met, because maybe your goals aren't his goals, but guess what? You have every opportunity to find a happiness that does not exist just on earth. And it does not, there's no comparison. There's not.
A purpose.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and part of the purpose, and before
which you two are living beautifully.
I wanted to make a comment about that. And before I do that, I just don't want somebody to feel like you're ignoring. They were asking about spooning, the spooning theory. If you guys, there's a video on our post that Rare Bones, our friend Christina did. You could check out that, and it kind of explains what the spoonie theory
it
is.
shows that one. She very beautifully described it, and it just really quick. If you have a condition, a chronic condition or disease or illness or pain, spoonie life would apply to you.
Yeah, you're a spoonie.
Yeah.
Because it's people that are in the chronic pain. The short of it is people that are in the chronic pain industry. It's actually a term that they've adopted or condition, and it has to do with those spoons and how many you have today, or
how many you have versus a healthy person.
And so when people say, spoonie, and that kind of ties into spoonful of sugar, that's basically kind of the terminology that people are increasingly, if you're not already familiar with, in terms of kind of a camaraderie.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps. But we have a post of someone that did a really good.
She really did a beautiful job describing it. And very quickly, it's a pretty short TikTok she did, and it's and not, when you go and watch that, subscribe to her. What a beautiful soul she is as well.
Yeah, Rare Bones.
They're so Rare Bones.
Yeah.
So, I cannot say this enough. We are surrounded by angels, and I don't mean the ones that are beyond the veil. I mean you. And every single time we have one of these beautiful interviews, we go to bed with our smiles ear to ear. And that can't stop my pain, but it sure as heck can continue to propel me forward and continue to give me strength, like you were talking about, that I can't explain a lot of times.
Yeah,
you're just
it's exactly
beautiful.
what I was wanting to say, and that in life we have milestones of progression and growth, and we all have a tendency to kind of resist it, right? We all can remember maybe the first day of going to kindergarten and how scary that was, and how, even if it was a good thing that we were, growing and we were going to start experiencing life, that what made it easier is, learning that other kids kind of were scared, or that, hey, there were some safe people, my teacher's safe, and, and so you gain experience, and part of the experience that we gain while we're growing oftentimes deals with painful and scary and hurtful and complicated things. And then couple that with, we talk about faith, and we talk about walking this path and how it's easier to kind of walk the path to kind of together. What none of us, I think there's a part of us that even if we have faith or whatever you want to call it, or belief or whatever, you inevitably start getting into experiences, firsthand experiences, that maybe you had only heard about in stories or people that had gone before you or whatever. And it's finally, time for you to start going through more of it, whether that is near-death experiences or things that you've shared with Will, whether that's going through your own conditions right now and trying to figure out how it's going to be, how you're going to just live day to day without, sometimes, people are saying I can't, and over 50% of the suicides are because of chronic pain related, and they're just trying, and so I think that it can, ironically, like Nell's saying, be a beautiful thing to where it doesn't have to be a negative. You talk about that space and the conditions that happened in that room. The closest that I can relate to that is when Nell almost passed, and what I experienced in that room, and when I watched her cousin, I think it was, pass. Right, I was in the room when he passed. Yeah, and when that happened, there was no question. Something some change in presence happened. It was the first time that I
It's
ever.
almost a change even in pressure, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's
just like you were
very,
saying, it's hard to explain.
Like, yeah, the words are
Yeah,
hard to,
but I
you know.
have.
I always felt I was doing like a disgrace to it, not being able to explain the way that it felt, you know.
Yes.
So it took me like quite a while. And I don't mean to interrupt you a second, but Will has to
Yeah.
go lay
Yeah.
down. But I didn't want to leave people hanging, but I just wanted to get to the part of after
Yes.
he was home, then that following November, he wasn't on oxygen till November. He started having other issues. With breathing, and there was a couple times where he had just collapsed and passed out, so he had to have a pacemaker put in, because when you have a heart valve replacement, it tends to deal with like the flow of how the blood goes, and it could slow down your heart too much, so he had to have a pacemaker and stuff put in. And then when in November his oxygen was kept dropping, and he was in the hospital. And every time he goes in the hospital, they always tell him he's not going to make it out. And, you know, obviously they're wrong. But in that November, they went in and did the bronchoscopy. They went down in his lungs. They looked at his lungs, and the doctor pretty much said to me, and my mom was in the room with me, and said that, you know, he has about 12 to 18 months, the way that his lungs are. And of course that was what about he has a year more on that than what they said with the 12 to 18 months in with his lungs. But
And
that
what was
is
that
when they
condition
discovered
called again?
pulmonary fibrosis.
Pulmonary fibrosis.
Pulmonary fibrosis. Yes, that's why I didn't want to leave people hanging. Like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah.
So basically, with the autoimmune disease, he has interstitial lung disease, interstitial pulmonary fibrosis. Basically, interstitial is just an umbrella term for, they were able to kind of figure out what caused his pulmonary fibrosis. You just don't get pulmonary fibrosis. It is caused by something else. And his was from the autoimmune disease and how it attacked his heart and it attacked his lungs. And pulmonary
and that's
fibrosis.
A scarring
Yes,
of the
it's
lung
a scarring.
tissue.
Basically, the way the doctor explained it is like, you have glue on your hands, and as you start to pull and the glue starts to dry, it gets hard and harder to pull apart. And that's just the way that Will's lungs are. And it's a scar tissue. Will has had 2 rapid progressions, which means like just basically what it is. It just is a very fast attack where he gets more scarring. He's had 2 of those, so far. And he's also has with the blood condition, why he cannot get the transplant, he's not eligible for, because of the antiphospholipid syndrome. He has to have the Lovenox shots in his belly, and because of they would have to stop the blood thinner. He would just bleed out with the surgery. He can't have the lung transplant. So that's completely off the table for him. So one thing kind of just snowballed into another. And he also has something that's called non-viral Liebman-Sachs endocarditis, which basically is also the hardening of the capillaries that lead into the heart, into the lungs. So he's got like a lot of those going on, but it's just easier to say because his worst thing that is condition is the pulmonary fibrosis. So that's, it's just easier to say the pulmonary. Yeah, so that's why
that's the most life-threatening out of all.
Yes, right. So that's where the lung thing, and it took a long time because they didn't exactly have all the markers for the autoimmune disease. So that's why it just took a long time to be able to get all these diagnoses together and just put everything together. But that's where it comes from with that. And so he's on oxygen 24/7. Right now it's like, 17% lung capacity. He did start a new medicine though that's called OFEB. It's an anti-fibrotic medicine that will slow down the progression of the fibrosis part. It will not cure it, but it's trying to slow it down. But it comes with very heavy side effects. He's also on an autoimmune suppressant drug that is, just wreaks havoc on his body, his stomach, everything else that goes on. So there's like a lot of other things, but he's on 19 different medications and shots. He's had brain bleeds because of it. So there's just, it's endless. Every day there's a battle to be fought, and you just keep going on and take it just day by day, and just continue to have, faith, and just pray. And
Well,
you know,
do you work full time as well?
I do
as...
not. I'm his full-time caretaker.
I'm so.
It has
happy
come
for
with a
that.
lot of sacrifices, a lot of hardships.
Yeah, because I was going to say.
That turns into a whole other story. But with medical and trying to work, and if you have income, then the 1 year. So we assessed me going back to work, and the amount of times that he was in the emergency room in 2019, he was in the emergency room 17 times. And you take all those co-pays with being in the emergency room, being admitted, all his medicines, the oxygen. Without the medical assistance part, we just couldn't survive. We lost our home. We lost both of our vehicles. We lost everything.
You're able to get disability, or the government.
He was finally, it took a little bit. He was able to get on Social Security disability and such, and I pay for with my insurance.
I know, but I'm just saying, my heart goes out to you, because the realities of income and just being able to, expenses, and I mean, there's a whole part of the story that we don't even have time to unpack. That's part of.
I know. I genuinely would love to have you guys on again, because I know there's so much more. And
it's good. You could go. You sure?
I'll see you.
Oh, Will, we love you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for fighting. Thank you for fighting.
Sorry, I gotta go.
No, don't you apologize.
That's okay. You don't apologize, my friend. We love you.
I'm actually hurting, so
thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do your shot, and we won't be much longer. I'll do your shot in a.
Yeah.
Okay. So that just, I could go on and on about that, but I through support and prayers and donations and just help, I am so blessed that I can be his caretaker. I don't look at that as a burden at all. It's a blessing that I could do this. I'm so glad that the Lord just gave me that strength to learn everything that I have learned, to be able to stay on top of things and to understand and comprehend stuff. And I once had a doctor told me I asked way too many questions. He's like, you asked too many questions. I was like, yeah, I'm only getting started,
Yeah,
for you.
It does come with a whole other aspect of things, but yeah.
Well, we hope that this, even from a financial, level, and it's not that you asked for it or anything, you guys, anybody that's watching this, even if it's recording, go and show them some love. Follow them on TikTok.
Thank you.
You'll be blessed by doing so.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to share on a part of a caretaker. I have, noticed that sometimes it's like, rightfully so, the patient who has the illness, has the attention, but there is a whole other side to that. And I was having a little bit of a difficult time. And as I reached out, and I'm just so honored that I'm able to be a voice for caretakers, and especially on the side with that Will lets me take all the reins with it, and I do a lot of the speaking part for him. Yeah. Especially for men. Like, it is, it's okay. A lot of the stuff that, Will tells me that I pass on too, for things. I mean, what was that typical, I'm not going to the doctors in the beginning, macho, this, that, and then as things start happening, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, she's like a hypochondriac kind of deal. And then, but you say that, and then then they stop like to go. And then here he has this real condition, and it was even, that was my own husband. It was a learning process for me. So
Yeah.
I just want to encourage.
Well, it reminds me, not to get too much in the Bible, but it reminds me of Moses and Aaron's story, right?
Mhm.
Aaron, he was not a good speaker, and
Oh yeah.
and Moses was able to speak. So you got things like that are just a testimony, and that even though he didn't speak verbally with a lot of things, or actually I think it might have been, I think it was the other way around. I think Moses was a good speaker and Aaron spoke for him. Anyway, you get the idea, and he spoke volumes with his energy and his presence, and people received that through you and your own as well. So it was a
Thank
pretty
you for the
beautiful
roses.
interview for sure. So.
Like Nell said, you don't see the energy that it takes just to even just sit here and to to do things. And we'll try and do things like he has learned, like getting stuff out of the washer is very difficult.
Yeah.
He could hang up his shirts, but he can't fold the towels. It just takes too much energy from him. So just to try and just to learn that. And one of the other things I wanted to kind of touch on, it might not be that, but sometimes you have to hold on to the husband and wife and not get so much wrapped up in the patient caretaker. That it's a very
I am so glad you talked about that. How important. Mwah. I'm going to give you a big old kiss.
Yeah, I mean, there are times that I struggle with that as well. And sometimes I feel like I'm like, okay, back down from the caretaker bit is a wife part. There are times where it's just a hard balance. And anybody that's struggling with that, reach out to me.
There is no rule book, folks.
No.
I don't care if you have spent years in therapy and you're healthier for it. There is nothing out there in religion, in the health industry, that is going to give you what you and your spouse or your partner, the best luck that you've got is maybe glean off of examples maybe that are out there, and especially just kind of figure it out yourself and with the Lord. It's a very personal thing.
I'll insert this. I happen to think that, and let's go across all relationships. Let's say you're a sister and you're a caretaker, you're a mother and you're the caretaker. Those relationships that you work on through some of the most difficult circumstances a person is asked to go through, and I'm talking caretaker and sufferer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you will be blessed with is silver linings is one of the sparks, and there's sparks of heaven that you will be blessed with, and you will find ways that the rest of the world may not consider dating or hanging out, or it may look different, but there are moments where there are times where Rex and I feel encased in a bubble that is completely sent straight from heaven. And so he is very, very mindful of all of us. Yeah. And the more that we fight and the more we are running away, or the less we're running away from our problems, the more we're willing to turn and face it and live it and learn to love it, the more that he blesses us with miracles that we cannot explain quite.
Yeah.
It's like we keep going back to this hospital stays, or the so something very simple can be something so incredibly stunning. And those little moments would mean more to me than, going out on our dates before I was sick. They mean more to me than anything. And so it's just about tweaking your life and saying, okay, it looks a little different. Oh well,
Right.
who cares?
Yeah, and be
Why
easier
do
on
we
each
have
other.
to? Why
you
do we
know?
have to do things the way the world wants us to do things?
Yeah, cut each other some slack.
Absolutely.
Be kind to each other.
Which is you just work on it constantly.
Mhm.
It's not ever
That's it.
going to be this end all be all. It's an everyday, every breath fight for each other, and it's so worth it. So worth it.
Learning
You are-
process.
You're just so like you're just so stunning, and I can't thank you enough for being there for Will and fighting as hard as you have for Will, and seeing Will outside of what Will is suffering. That
Yeah.
he is the love of your life, and that he is absolutely not just the man that you fell in love with, but more of a man.
And that exudes from you.
Yes.
I want you to know that both
of you.
it's obvious when there's the love and the care, maybe a little bit more in the caretaker space, but that there's also the romance, and that you're my soulmate. I love you, and
That's what I'm talking about. Look, when you go through this level of trauma and this level of, it gets rid of all the noise the world wants to pile on you. And so what can happen is a simple look between especially partners and married couples. A simple look becomes something incredibly special. That before you wouldn't have even possibly noticed, because you're just busy. We're not saying busy or being healthy is a bad thing. We're not. I don't want to compare. I just want to give accolades where they are deserved, fully deserved.
Yeah.
And we see it in you and Will, and it's such a pleasure. It's so beautiful, and it gives us all that extra hope to hang on to these relationships, because I know of personally people that have just walked away, and not in even a kind way, a brutal way. I'm leaving you.
Wow.
You figure out your meds. You figure out your food. Yeah. Yep.
And it's not perfect. Even the greatest love story, you guys, that you might think is out there.
That's what makes it.
It's they're trying.
That's what ironically
any
makes it
couple
perfect.
has things behind the scenes.
Sure.
And so
Rex and I will get into those things.
Yeah.
Oh, Will and I, we started out, things were rough. I mean, we have definitely not always had, sunshine and rainbows and things, but
right.
I always said in the, we had an opportunity through an organization, and I forgot I'm going to bring it up, but they are called Wish Upon a Wedding. So anybody out there that is listening, Wish Upon a Wedding is just a fabulous organization that they will give you a wedding or a vow renewal, anything along those lines. It does it, and it's a lot of the organizations out there, you have to be like terminal. And I'm not taking away from that, but this one here, as long as you have gone through, you okay? Do you need to sit?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you take care of him.
Okay. You have to, it's just something that's like a life altering situation that you have gone through, but most of it is all about illness. Well, we applied for them, and we had our vows renewed, and it was the most spectacular day that we got to experience. But
That's so strange.
we had,
you said that.
No one wants to do that.
Just today, because we have a song that we want to, because our wedding wasn't maybe all the choices I would have chose. We were young. I was 19. He was 21. But just today, our song came on that I would love, and I was thinking, one day we're gonna have that our vow renewal.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that's
so
so
awesome
strange
that
that
you
you
did
mentioned
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called Wish Upon a Wedding, and you just apply for it. And I know that COVID, everything's been a little goofy
Yeah.
with them, but
Yeah.
I applied. They reached out, to us that we would love to be able to grant you your wish, and
That's amazing.
so I mean, everything from a dress to Will's suit to, I mean, you name it. Only thing you have to pay for is postage. It has something to do with, like, they even give you invitations. So it was such an awesome memory that we will always just be able to cherish. And we renewed
Yeah.
our vows. And the most special thing for us was, at the time, both of our sons were engaged, and we had our sons and their fiancés stand up there with us, and they got to witness us renew our vows, for sickness and in health, richer for poor,
Yeah.
oh, I got it all mixed up, but you know what they
It
are.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You got it.
Richer
You got
for
the
sickness and
health
till death do us
That's
part.
all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, when you say them, mean them. They are not just words,
Yes.
because you don't, you might have all these grand plans, but it's just not always the way that it goes, and you just have to roll with it all. And so it was a very much an honor for us to stand up there and have our, pastor and, renew our vows, and our boys who were, getting married the following year, to be able to see that. It was such a blessing. And I hope, if anything, that they could see that, where, we did not have this perfect marriage in the beginning, had our ups and downs, but that's not what defined you forever. But I am so thankful for what we did go through to bring us to where we are, in the strength that we have, together. And, I just,
I can only imagine how stunning that moment was for you two, saying those words again after going through what you have, and having that moment again. Have those words carry such deep meaning, and that I would have been bawling my eyes out had I seen that.
It was it. One other thing that Will wanted to do, and he did it. And like I said, we became very close with some of the nurses. They were even at our vow renewal.
Oh, really?
And Will wanted to renew our vows without the oxygen. That man walked down the steps with me, did the entire service without his oxygen on.
He did it. Oh my
He did
Lord.
it. The entire service. Now, his nurses were sitting on the edge of their seats.
I know.
But God was giving him the breath that he needed to speak, and to be able to last through through the vow renewal part. So I have the whole video, and it's one of the last things that, with Will without, like, his oxygen on permanently. And so it's a blessing to be able to have that. But that's what he wanted to do.
I've got to see it. I've got to now. Listen, because we'll know that he might be giving people heart attacks on the sideline.
Yeah, really.
It's mess. Like, really?
Yeah.
I try to tell him sometimes. And it's like,
Well,
he likes to keep people on their toes.
Yeah, he for sure
Yeah.
has a mission, and Heavenly Father's made it very clear. We are not ready for you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and the comments on our end have just been going off the rails in terms of how much they love you guys, and how much it's
Such
meant for them
beautiful
to join this evening, and they feel belongingness, and they're some even have gotten emotional. So I just
thank you guys.
yeah. So
I so appreciate everyone that's hung in there with us and listened to our story and gave us the support. And we thank you so much. And we do love you all. And anytime we are here for the same, just reach out. You guys have just been such a blessing, and, learning, and we just love you guys too. So thank you so much.
We love you too.
Your
And I will
family.
pass that on
Your
to
family.
Will. He hung
Yes.
out really good. I was really, I
I'm
was,
so impressed.
He's
yeah.
I'm
a
so
champ.
impressed.
Yeah, give our love to him. Give him a big hug for us, and we'll have to do it again.
Before we go, they've said you two need to share your story wider, whether it's books, talks. That's how much you've touched people.
And we'll do what we can.
Oh.
I know that it's just putting it on our YouTube channel, but I don't know if this is the first time that you've ever shared this much, but keep at it because it's pretty.
Keep going.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All
It
right.
gives me encouragement with it too. So thank you. I have been told that many times. I just don't know how to put it into motion. I have like my notes and stuff. I don't why it's just I just started even before we knew where this was going to go. I have notes and things that I started to write myself and what I was feeling even before we knew he was going to have the surgery. And things. So I do have a lot of that like written down. And
well, then I will tell you what, that will be in my prayers. That Heavenly Father will guide you and open that up to you, and you'll know when and you'll know how.
Well,
but it's a priceless. Several beautiful lessons within your story, and the world needs to hear it.
Yeah, and at a minimum, when you go on our YouTube, you can click on the share option, and you can copy it. You can copy and paste the link, and do whatever you want with that. Absolutely. Right? You could add that to your link tree. Yep. You can, because it'll still direct them to our channel.
To try to share it.
Yeah,
you can use it.
That just reminds me. Yeah. I put and I don't know if it's the real long version, but there was the video that they put out that they made for us, and it is on YouTube, and I think it's just listed as Will and Shelley vow renewal, and I never even thought to put the YouTube link on with there. So thank you. So I'll do that. So it gives the larger.
Put that
kind of like Linktree is an application, right? If you don't have,
I think that's the one that I have.
Okay.
And I'll say this: if you're willing to have us share that as well, or if you'd like us to, just give us the word, and we will.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I'll do a 3-minute highlight, and I share that to Facebook and Instagram, and on Facebook it includes a link to your video. So we do what we can after the interview's over to help.
We would be honored to do that.
Thank you. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Means a lot. Love you guys, and we appreciate this opportunity, and we are so enriched by being able to talk with you and just
absolutely. You are our first Tuesday interview. We started the Tuesdays and the Thursdays.
Yay!
So how exciting is that?
I told you guys it was coming from us.
That's awesome. When I got your message, I was so excited. I said I couldn't wait.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Not only did we change all of the scheduling so that people were adjusted, so that we've got your Tuesdays and your Thursdays. Sometimes it might be Wednesday or Friday, depending on if people can or can't do it.
Yep.
But even with that, we're still booked through, I think, February of 2023.
Everybody's been bumped up. We could not be more thrilled.
So people were able to get in a little bit sooner.
This was one of those things, when I first said it, he was like, what? I look at it, it'll happen when it needs to happen, and the Lord's all watching all of us.
Yep.
And taking care of all of us.
Yep. So Thursday, catch us Thursday, you guys. We're every Tuesday and Thursday for the most part. We go live, and then you can catch the recordings.
Well, you guys. So 2 days from now.
The Thursday we actually have Curly Dog. I think is her username. I think her name is Judy. Yep. She was our first active follower, and we finally.
Wow!
Yeah.
So don't miss that. She was the first one that started actively following us with our lives and stuff. So we get the honor of having her.
Remember, these are all your future family. That's how I look at it. And so make sure you get on and you love them all, because it's not always easy to get on and do this.
Yep. 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Yeah. So same time on both.
I know. I was like Googling. I'm like, what does that mean for Eastern Standard Time?
Yeah, that's 8 o'clock Eastern.
I know. Sometimes I have to sit and go, hold on.
Well,
right.
Sometimes we're doing the QK. I'm meeting with some people at
Yeah.
4 our time, and it's 11 o'clock theirs.
I think we
So
have-
we
Right.
start. We're
I think we have someone in England next month.
yep.
So-
Yeah, we got a couple in England, one in Norway.
Yeah.
So
That is incredible.
yeah,
I mean, even
All
just to
your
get the
family.
word out
yeah,
Your
around the world,
family
to
just
somebody.
gets bigger and bigger.
yep.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Sometimes
So,
we're, people, we are the only church that some people might hear. So if you're
Yeah.
somewhere else and just reaching out, that's incredible.
Yep.
yeah.
I just best the luck with
It's
everything. Whatever I
beautiful.
can do to help, we will definitely be standing with you guys.
We are
us as
family.
well.
We will be in touch, my friend.
Email
All right, sounds
anytime. Seriously, I'll just end with this. Email anytime with updates on Will.
Will
Just
do.
we love to know what's going on outside
Yes.
of these interviews. We actually would prefer to always know. If there's anything that happens, please reach out, message, email, whatever.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
love it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
I just
thanks.
even
Have a
comfort to
wonderful
know
night.
too. You
Have a
too.
very healthy, safe night, Will. Nothing's happened tonight, Will.
I will
You heard
tell
me?
him that.
Behave yourself.
Yeah, behave, Will.
No
Okay,
more,
have
no
a
more
good night.
surprises.
Have a
All
wonderful
right,
night.
love you guys.
Okay,
Thank
love
you.
ya.
Mwah.
All right, bye. Aw.